Hello, my name's Alicia, and my parents gave me a tent at my own housewarming, then told me to leave. They said I was starting a new chapter. What they meant was, "You've paid for the house, now get out." At first, I thought I was just helping, covering bills, groceries, car repairs. But then, my savings vanished, my name disappeared from every account. I found emails, spreadsheets planning how to drain me dry, and when they finally kicked me out, smiling, clapping, pretending it was a gift, I didn't scream, I just watched. But how did I go from standing outside that house to owning it? When the voicemail came, I was rinsing off my dinner plate. My mother's voice, usually syrupy sweet or borderline shrill, sounded strained, low, urgent. "Call me back. It's important." I knew something was off the moment I pressed play, but I didn't rush to return the call. We hadn't exactly been on good terms. The last time I'd seen them was Easter, and even then it felt like I was just another guest. Polite nods, hollow smiles, Skylar scrolling through her phone while I cleaned up. Still, I called back, and 30 minutes later, I was pulling into my parents' driveway, wondering why every time I tried to untangle myself from them, they found a new way to reel me back in. Mom opened the door before I even knocked, her eyes watery but her lipstick perfect. "Alicia, honey, come in." The kitchen was too clean. Skylar was perched on the sofa with a blanket and her phone, as usual. Dad stood by the window, hands in his pockets, rocking slightly like he was rehearsing something. I knew that rhythm. That was the "we're about to drop a bomb" sway. "We didn't want to tell you over the phone," Mom said, already leading me toward the table. "But your father lost his job last week." I blinked. "What? When?" "They eliminated his whole department," she added, avoiding my eyes. I looked to Dad. He just nodded, jaw tight. No detail, no outrage, just a nod. "And with Skylar's tuition coming up," Mom continued, "plus the mortgage and all the other bills, we're stretched thin." That's when I felt it, the shift, the silence after a setup, the collective inhale before they ask for something. Dad finally spoke. "If you could move back home, just for a while, it would really help. Keep the lights on, help with the bills." Mom placed her hand over mine. "Just until we get back on our feet, a few months." I didn't say yes immediately. I asked questions. How much would they need? How long exactly? What about Skylar's part-time job? Wasn't she contributing? But none of those questions mattered. The answer had already been decided. They just needed my consent to make it feel less like a command. "We're family," Mom said, as if that erased the weight of everything she didn't say out loud. I agreed, not because I wanted to, but because I'd been trained to. Trained to say yes when they used the word need. Trained to equate help with "give up everything you've worked for." I gave notice on my apartment the next day, packed my things into storage, gave my landlord a sad little smile, and said I'd be back in a few months. But I didn't believe it. When I walked into my old bedroom, it wasn't mine anymore. Skylar had turned it into her personal walk-in closet. The bed was stripped bare, shelves lined with makeup kits, designer handbags, and shoes I knew she couldn't afford. Her things had been moved into boxes stacked against the wall, but her perfume still lingered in the air. I stood there looking at the space I once dreamed in, and felt smaller than I had at 16. Dad popped his head in, grinning like it was some grand reunion. "Good to have you back, Princess." Princess. That name used to make me feel special. Now it just made me feel trapped. The first few days, I kept to myself. I logged into work from my laptop, answered emails, transferred $1,800 into Mom's account, and stayed quiet. That was the deal, right? Pay rent in the form of saving the family. But nobody called it rent. They called it love. Within a week, my responsibilities multiplied. Groceries were suddenly my job. When the internet bill came late, Dad handed it to me like it was expected. "Can you handle this? We're still adjusting." I did. I handled it. Every single time. Skylar started asking for gas money, then coffee money, then clothes. "Just until my refund check comes," she'd say, flipping her hair like it was a magic trick. I didn't push back. Not yet. One night after dinner, I finally mentioned my concerns. "I might have to cut back a little. My savings are shrinking." Dad put down his fork, his smile disappearing. "You're 30. You're not married. You don't have kids. You've got no real expenses. This is your job now, being here for your family. I stared at him, mouth half open. My job? It's what decent daughters do, he added, stabbing his pork chop like it had insulted him personally. And Mom? She just kept sipping her wine like it was none of her business. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my old twin bed, scrolling through my bank app. The numbers were going down faster than I'd anticipated. Rent, bills, tuition, extras. I was bleeding money, quietly, invisibly, and no one was even saying thank you anymore. Skylar burst in without knocking, grabbed a sweater from one of the boxes, and left just as fast. It hit me then, not as a scream, not even a sob. Just a quiet, nauseating realization. They weren't grateful. They were entitled. And I was no longer helping. I was being used. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Skylar blow-drying her hair in the hallway. The house always felt louder now. TVs on in 2 rooms, music leaking from someone's phone, and doors opening and slamming with no rhythm or purpose. I pulled the blanket tighter over me and stared at the ceiling. Maybe I was just tired. Or maybe I was losing grip on what I used to call home. It wasn't until I checked my bank account that the ground really shifted beneath me. I had logged in just to schedule a transfer for my phone bill. Instead, I stared at the balance for a full minute, not understanding what I was seeing. My savings, over $60,000 that I had carefully built up over nearly a decade, was gone. Not reduced. Gone. Every last cent. At first, I thought it was fraud. My hands trembled as I clicked through transactions. Maybe my card had been skimmed or my account hacked. But no, there it was. One massive withdrawal marked under a familiar tag. Linked access authorized user LaDonna. LaDonna, my mother. I didn't even knock. I walked straight into the kitchen, holding my phone like it was evidence in a criminal case. She was making coffee, humming to herself. "Did you sleep okay, sweetie?" she asked without turning around. I placed the phone on the counter between us. "What did you do with my savings?" She blinked slowly. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play games with me," I snapped. "There's a withdrawal, $62,000. It says linked access." That was for my house. I was going to buy a place before I moved back here. She didn't even flinch. "We are buying a house." "We?" "Yes," she said, finally turning toward me. "Your father and I found a place. It needs some work, but it's in a better neighborhood, good schools, more space. And we've always dreamed of having a real backyard." "Mom," I said, voice shaking, "that was not your money to take." Her smile didn't waver. "You live here rent-free. You're not a child anymore, Alicia. This is your contribution." I couldn't breathe. I turned and stormed outside, pacing the driveway like I was trying to outrun what I'd just heard. My own mother had emptied my account, and she thought I should be grateful for the opportunity. Later that evening, she called a family meeting. We sat around the kitchen table like it was some kind of sitcom. Me, Dad, Skylar, barefoot, scrolling Instagram, and Mom holding a folder of property brochures. "It's a smart investment," she said, sliding one of the glossy photos toward me. 3 bedrooms, fenced yard, decent view. I pushed it back without looking. "You stole from me." Dad interjected before she could answer. "You'll thank us one day, sweetheart. We're setting up a better life. For all of us." "For all of us," I repeated. "Except I didn't get a say, or even a warning." Skylar didn't look up from her phone. "You're being dramatic. It's not like you were going to buy a house tomorrow." "That's not the point," I snapped. "You don't get to decide what's done with my money." Mom sighed like I was inconveniencing her with my reaction. "Honestly, Alicia, you've been acting so entitled lately. You're not the only one sacrificing." I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood up. "Don't ever touch my accounts again. I'm removing your access tonight." "You're overreacting," Dad muttered. "We raised you, fed you, gave you everything, and now you act like a victim because we needed help? You didn't ask for help. You took it." Skylar finally spoke, snorting. "God, maybe if you weren't such a control freak, you'd actually have a boyfriend, or friends, someone else to dump your drama on." I left the table before I said something I couldn't take back. Over the next few weeks, things only got weirder. The internet bill used to come in my name. Now it showed Skylar's. The power bill? Addressed to my dad. One by one, my name disappeared from every system I used to pay for. I asked Mom about it once. She just shrugged. It's easier for us to keep track this way. But I'm still paying for it, I reminded her. Which makes it even more generous of you, she replied, rinsing a glass without meeting my eyes. At night, I started keeping my wallet under my pillow, not because I thought someone would steal it, but because I couldn't ignore the feeling that nothing I owned was safe anymore. Not my space, not my money, not even my place in the household. It wasn't the theft that broke me, it was how normal they made it seem. The tension in the house had started to feel like humidity, thick, clinging, impossible to shake off. I went through the motions every day, but something in me had shut down. My smiles were automatic, my responses rehearsed, and every time I heard the words, "Can you help with?" my stomach tightened like a knot pulling tighter with each favor I never volunteered for. One Thursday evening, a thunderstorm knocked out the Wi-Fi just as I was finishing a late report for work. I grabbed my mom's laptop from the dining table, she'd left it charging there, and logged into my company portal. I had 10 minutes left before the system timed out. I uploaded the document and was about to shut it down when something caught my eye. A browser tab still open. Normally, I wouldn't care. But the title of the tab froze me cold. E-Plan, Monthly Pulls. I stared at it, heart pounding in a rhythm I couldn't control. My hand hovered over the trackpad for a full 5 seconds before I clicked. Inside was a thread of emails. Subject line, "How much more before she snaps?" The senders, LaDonna, Russell, Skylar. It wasn't just the title that hurt, it was the tone. Casual, calculated, bullet-pointed. A spreadsheet was attached, labeled E-Plan. Each row marked a new month. Beside everyone, an expected contribution and a method. Groceries, car repairs, emergency dental, tuition spike. All phrased like strategy. One entry read, June, Skylar's car, brake issue. Estimate $500-600, use guilt. Another, July, Russell job lead, didn't work out, ask for bill float. The comments on the side were worse. Skylar had written, try the fainting trick again, worked last fall. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear landed on the laptop. That night, lying in the dark, I traced backward in my mind every emergency from the past year. The time Mom claimed she passed out in the store, and I Venmo'd her $800 for a hospital bill. She later brushed off any follow-up questions. The weekend Skylar claimed she needed emergency dental surgery, another $1,200. I never saw gauze, never heard a complaint afterward. Dad's car towed incident when he texted me from a parking lot begging for $650 before they impounded it. I remember the panic, the guilt, the rush to help. Every one of those entries matched the spreadsheet. I wasn't supporting a struggling family. I was fueling a system of exploitation, custom-built to bleed me dry. I didn't confront them. Not right away. I started collecting proof. Receipts, bank statements, screenshots of messages. I stored them in a locked folder on a USB drive, hidden inside a hollow book in my nightstand. I began recording vague comments on my phone's voice memo app, harmless things, until they were all strung together. I ordered a small safe and kept it bolted beneath my bed. Inside, my ID, debit card, passport, and cash. I'd lost enough already. I wasn't about to let them wipe me clean. Then came the text. Skylar. Hey, I need $500 for a field trip next week. It's required for class. I stared at the message, then typed, Ask Dad. Less than a minute later, he said you'd cover it. You always do. The words glowed on my screen like a neon sign over a door I wasn't walking through again. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my planner and flipped to the end of the month. My birthday was 7 days away. No one had mentioned it. No whispers about dinner or cake. No questions about time off or plans. I wasn't surprised. Birthdays in this house were only remembered if someone could benefit from them. I stared at the empty date box on the calendar. This year, I wouldn't ask for anything. I wouldn't plan a thing. I wouldn't give a single dollar. This year, I wouldn't be giving. I'd be watching. The next few days, I kept my head down. I moved in silence, observed everything. I noticed how my mother's tone only softened when she needed something. How Skylar would linger by my door, pretending to stretch or look for something that never existed. How Dad kept trying to catch me alone in the living room, like he was prepping for a pitch. And sure enough, on Saturday morning, he made his move. I was sitting at the dining table with a coffee, reviewing a report on my laptop, when Russell strolled in with a manila folder. He dropped it next to my mug with the same ease someone might set down a grocery list. "What's this?" I asked without looking up. "Just a little paperwork," he said casually. "It's a cosign, no big deal, just a signature." That made me look. The form was from First State Bank, pre-filled with his information, and mine, a personal loan application, requested amount $18,000, purpose, home upgrades and essential improvements. "Why do you need a loan?" I asked. "For the new house," he said. "Back deck needs fixing, roof's a mess, couple of updates before winter." I closed my laptop. This is the first I'm hearing about it. Russell raised his eyebrows like I was being unreasonable. "Come on, Alicia, it's just your name on the paperwork. I'll be making the payments." "Then why don't you qualify on your own?" He paused for a second too long. "Because my last employer hasn't sent the verification letter yet. Just temporary." "Right," I said, standing up. "Let me see the loan terms. The interest rate, repayment plan." He didn't have them, just the form, just the pen. I pushed it back toward him. "No." He blinked. "Excuse me? I'm not signing this." His entire posture shifted, shoulders tightened, jaw clenched. "We've supported you your whole life, Alicia. One signature, and this is the thanks we get?" I didn't argue, I just walked away. That evening, the air in the house turned cold. Not physically, just emotionally vacant. Skylar didn't say a word when I passed her in the hall. My mother didn't offer dinner. My father pretended I wasn't in the room. I knew what they were doing. This wasn't punishment, it was conditioning. Emotional silence as a leash. Withdraw affection, pressure the target, wait for compliance. It didn't work. The next night, dinner turned into a trial, a tribunal. I sat down to a table already simmering with tension. Mom folded her napkin slowly. "We've been talking," she said, glancing at Dad, "and we feel like, lately, you've been distant, less cooperative." "Cooperative?" I echoed. Skylar kept eating, but her eyes flicked up, amused. "You've always had a chip on your shoulder when it comes to your sister," LaDonna continued, voice sickly sweet. "I don't know if it's jealousy or guilt." "Jealousy?" I nearly laughed. "Of what? Her closet full of things I paid for?" "She's trying," Mom insisted. "College isn't easy. She needs support." "She has support," I said. "From me. Always from me." "You never really helped her like you could have," Russell added, his voice tight. "You've always been a little selfish, Alicia." I stared at the three of them. "You know what's funny? I used to think I wasn't doing enough, that maybe I was the problem. But now I see it. You're not disappointed in me. You're disappointed I stopped being useful." Skylar smirked without lifting her head. "You're so dramatic." I stood. "You've crossed a line." Mom opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. "No, don't twist this into some family guilt parade. Don't tell me I'm ungrateful. Don't call this love." The silence that followed felt thick as concrete. That night, I made decisions. I opened a new bank account, transferred every dollar I had into it, changed passwords, cut off autopays. I bought a cheap burner phone and started recording conversations. I documented everything, every receipt, every demand, every lie. This time, if they wanted to play games, I'd come armed. Skylar texted me the next morning. "Why are you acting like a stranger?" I didn't reply. I didn't owe them explanations anymore. One evening, I walked past the kitchen and paused just outside the doorway. Inside, I saw them laughing, my parents and Skylar, like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't drained me, gaslit me, and turned me into a walking transaction. They thought I was bluffing, that this was another moody phase I'd snap out of. They were wrong. I won't warn them again. I didn't show it, but I was counting the days, not to some celebration or milestone, but to an ending, mine. I moved through the house like a ghost that refused to be exorcised. Quiet, present, but never really seen. Then came the invitations. Skylar's birthday was coming up. Her big 24, as she called it. Mom went into party planning overdrive. Caterers were called, floral samples scattered across the dining table, and Dad stayed up late comparing DJ quotes like it was the Super Bowl. And me? I was asked to help address envelopes. Just for family, LaDonna said, like I wasn't part of that category anymore. On the day of the party, the house looked like a Pinterest board exploded. Balloons arched over the new marble countertop I never approved. Champagne flutes glittered under string lights Dad definitely didn't hang himself. I stood in the kitchen helping arrange sliders on silver trays when Skylar floated in, wearing a sequined dress that probably cost more than my car insurance. "Can you bring the napkins to the back patio?" she asked, not even making eye contact. I should have said no. I should have thrown the whole stack in the trash. But I walked outside, dropped them on the bar, and watched as a photographer snapped pictures of my parents and Skylar. There I was, somewhere behind a ficus. When the music got louder, I slipped back inside. No one noticed. I ate cold shrimp from a paper plate in the garage, sitting on a folding chair next to the recycling bin. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just counted. 4 days until I was 31. I didn't expect a cake or a card. But I didn't expect what came next either. 1 week later, the house was buzzing again. This time, for their big housewarming. The house that had been paid for, almost entirely, by my drained savings. I watched from the edge of the foyer as friends and neighbors walked through, complimenting the crown molding, the color palette, the cozy but luxe vibe. "I can't believe you pulled this off," one woman said to Russell, sipping a glass of Pinot. He chuckled, tapping his temple. "It's all about strategy, timing, vision." I stood 3 feet away, not a glance in my direction. Halfway through the evening, just as dessert was served, Mom clinked a fork against her glass. "Everyone, may I have your attention?" People turned. Even the DJ lowered the volume. Russell stepped beside her, smiling like a game show host. "We have a very special surprise for someone who's meant a lot to this family." My stomach dropped. "Alicia?" LaDonna called out sweetly, gesturing me forward. I hesitated, but people were already parting the crowd for me. Russell handed me a large box wrapped in shiny silver paper. "This is for you, a gift for your next chapter." Next chapter? I peeled back the paper slowly. Inside was a camping tent, a 2-person Coleman still in its plastic. I blinked. LaDonna beamed. "It's time you found your own path, sweetheart. Independence suits you." The room broke into awkward applause. Someone laughed. I think it was Skylar. Russell added, "You've been here long enough. It's time to spread those wings." I felt like the floor shifted beneath me, like I was the punchline to a joke I hadn't heard. I didn't say anything. I didn't cry. I didn't run. I just nodded, turned, and walked upstairs. No one followed. That night, I packed a small duffel. Just clothes, my documents, chargers. I left everything else. In the kitchen, I dropped the garage key on the counter with a sticky note that read, "Thank you for nothing." Then I booked a hotel 2 towns over. Not much. Just a clean room with a door that locked and a bed that didn't come with guilt. I moved the rest of my money into a new account, deleted every shared login, changed every password. I sent one final email to my boss to request remote work approval. She responded within an hour. "Take all the time you need. I've got your back." Outside, the night was thick with humidity and silence. I sat in my car for a while, hands resting on the steering wheel, phone glowing in my lap. Then I opened my contacts and found a name I hadn't called in months. A realtor, saved under Plan B. I typed 3 words. "Still got that listing?" The reply came 5 minutes later. "Still available. Want to see it tomorrow?" I said yes before I let myself second guess it. The motel room was small, just a double bed, a stained dresser, and a weak overhead bulb that buzzed faintly like a tired fly. I curled up on the edge of the mattress with a slice of gas station pizza and a bottle of water. No TV, no noise. Just me and the realization that for the first time in years, no one was expecting anything from me. No requests, no invoices masked as family needs. The quiet was unnerving at first, then beautiful. By morning, I had a to-do list on a hotel notepad. Cancel all auto payments, transfer every cent to a new bank account, schedule a number change, lock down my credit. I opened a burner email under an alias, No more family at anything. I called the realtor after brushing my teeth with a plastic-wrapped toothbrush from the front desk. By noon, I had a tour lined up. The studio was smaller than my childhood bedroom, but it smelled like fresh paint and fresh chances. I signed the lease before I could talk myself out of it. First month, last month deposit. I wired it on the spot. The key fit my palm like it had been waiting. Back at the motel, I packed my things without ceremony. I checked out by sunset, drove 6 miles to my new place, and moved in with nothing but my duffel and a stubborn knot of resolve. I ordered takeout and ate on the floor while my laptop downloaded old receipts and PDFs. I even opened a spreadsheet, my own e-plan. Not for extraction, but restoration. 3 days passed before the first sign of impact. Russell called. I didn't answer. LaDonna left a voicemail. Your father's car was repossessed. Do you even care? I deleted it. Then Skylar texted. You're seriously doing this? This is why you'll die alone. I blocked her. The house began to unravel. Utility notices, late fees, missed payments. I could feel it from miles away, the tension, the confusion. How could their cash cow vanish without notice? Because she wasn't theirs anymore. Then came the letter. A manila envelope slid under my apartment door. No return address. Inside, a printed email from a firm claiming I owed my parents $24,000 in past rent, utilities, and familial contribution. It read like a joke, but it wasn't funny. I scanned the header and laughed out loud. I hadn't done that in weeks. I forwarded it to James, my college friend who now worked for a litigation firm in Charlotte. He called me within the hour. This is laughable, he said. I've seen kindergartners write better threats. I figured, I said, smirking. Just wanted professional confirmation. He asked for documentation. I sent bank statements, Venmo records, every cash transfer from the last 3 years. The total? $43,200. James drafted a response on letterhead. 4 pages. Sharp, factual, impossible to argue. He copied me in on the email and blind copied someone from the state bar. Just in case. 2 days later, a reply arrived. Our clients will not be pursuing this matter further. We apologize for the inconvenience. That was it. No signature, no apology, just retreat. I printed the message on thick cardstock and slid it into a dollar store frame. I hung it next to the thermostat in my studio apartment. The thermostat I paid for, set to the temperature I chose, in a space no one else had a claim to. I wasn't bitter. I was free. It started with a vibration on my nightstand, then another, and another. By the time I grabbed my phone, I had 37 notifications, texts, missed calls, social tags, even an old friend from college messaging. Hey, is everything okay? Confused, I opened my Facebook. Pinned at the top of my feed was a long thread from a burner account. It read like a heartfelt confession. I tried so hard to love my sister, even after she got rich and forgot about us. She left us when we needed her most. Mom cried for weeks. Dad lost weight. Skylar almost dropped out of school, but all Alicia cared about was money. The comment section was a dumpster fire of sympathy, judgment, and nosy people I hadn't spoken to in years. One comment stood out, though. It quoted something word for word I had once texted my best friend Amber in private. Some families don't just break you, they build altars to your guilt. I felt the air pull from my lungs. There was no way anyone could have known that phrase, unless they'd read my messages. Unless someone had gone through my phone, or had access to my cloud backups. I didn't need a detective to guess who. By noon, it had spread. Screenshots of texts, cropped and taken out of context, were floating across multiple platforms. Skylar had cleverly left out her name but made it clear who the selfish older sister was. At lunch, my boss poked his head into my Zoom window. Hey, I saw some stuff online. Hope you're okay. Let me know if you need to take a few days. Take a few days? I hadn't even taken a breath. Later that evening, an angel investor from my startup replied to a pitch update I sent earlier that week. This kind of personal publicity, while understandable, may affect investor confidence, he wrote. Might be worth issuing a clarification. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled up every screenshot, every message, every social post. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Defamation Nov. Inside went everything. Timestamps, links, backup downloads. They weren't just smearing me, they were trying to ruin what I'd built. They knew I'd removed myself financially, physically, emotionally. And since they couldn't extract anything else, now they wanted to burn it all down. So I made one move. I sent a single group text. I know what you did. You're not anonymous, and I'm not afraid of you. No one replied, not even Skylar. The next day I got a mass email forwarded to me from a mutual family friend. It was from my mother. Subject line, concern for Alicia's well-being. The body read like a slow-motion punch to the chest. She's been distant, erratic. We worry something's wrong with her. She's never handled stress well. We just hope she knows we're still here, if she gets the help she needs. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. Mental instability? That was their tactic now? I added the email to my growing evidence file. If they wanted to drag me into the mud, they'd have to drown in it with me. I drove by the house that evening. My old house. The windows were dark. Weeds had crept up along the porch. And stuck to the wrought iron gate in front was a bright orange notice. Foreclosure repossession pending. I put the car in park, stared for a long moment. I didn't feel joy or pity. I felt readiness. I called the realtor I'd been working with. My voice didn't shake. It's time. Let's buy it. The courthouse was colder than I expected, not just in temperature but in spirit. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the tiled floors and beige walls that looked like they'd never known warmth. It was the kind of place where lives were split, futures decided, and histories erased, with the stroke of a pen and the signature of someone you'd never meet again. No one here was sentimental. No one lingered longer than necessary. I signed where I was told, hand steady, eyes forward. All the documents bore the name of the LLC I'd created a month earlier. Me Holdings, my initials, my boundary line, my declaration. It wasn't just a legal name. It was a stake in the ground. I wasn't here to play small. I was claiming something. The property auction was over in less than 10 minutes. There was only one other bidder, a man in a wrinkled button-up with a Bluetooth earpiece and the air of someone who bought and sold homes like candy bars. He started strong, but the moment he flipped through the inspection report and saw the mildew, the shifting foundation, and the years of unaddressed water damage, he backed off. No fanfare, no drama, just a quiet nod to the auctioneer. And then it was mine. $212,000 for a mansion. Of course, it was a mansion with more problems than walls that held it up, but I knew what I was getting into. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I just didn't care. The baggage was part of the draw. It was broken, but it was mine, just like me. Are you sure you want this place? The realtor asked, pausing as she scanned my ID. Her eyes flicked up from the screen, brow furrowed in something between concern and confusion. I've never been more certain, I told her, my voice low and even. Then I signed the final form, pressed the pen down like I was branding the paper, and handed it back. No hesitation, no second glance. 2 weeks passed. The day I picked up the keys, the sky was a single, unbroken sheet of gray. Thick clouds clung to the mountaintops like smoke that didn't know where to go. The air felt heavy, dense with the kind of silence that comes before a storm, or after a long cry. The house stood exactly as I remembered it from the walkthrough, massive, silent, and absolutely lifeless. The paint on the siding had peeled away like old skin. Several windows were fogged or cracked. A plastic bag hung from a bare branch in the yard like a forgotten prayer. It was the kind of house you could almost hear breathing, just not in a comforting way. I parked the car and sat there for a moment, staring at the front door. Then, in the rearview mirror, I saw movement. Another vehicle pulled up behind mine. Familiar, unwelcome. They stepped out one by one, like ghosts from a life I no longer subscribed to. Russell got out first, older, grayer, thinner than I remembered. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. His expression wasn't angry, it was worse. It was hollow. LaDonna followed, clutching her bag like a shield, her eyes scanning the yard like she expected paparazzi to jump out from the bushes. And then there was Skylar, sitting in the back seat with her arms crossed, oversized sunglasses concealing whatever performance she was rehearsing this time. I stood in the doorway, not saying a word, just watching, letting them feel the silence. Russell was the first to speak, his voice cautious. "We're not here to fight," he said, holding up both hands like I was a live wire. "We just need somewhere to stay, temporarily." LaDonna took a small step forward. Her voice was soft, rehearsed. "We made mistakes," she said, "but you're still our daughter." Skylar rolled her eyes. "It's not like you need all these rooms." I leaned against the doorframe, the cold wood pressing into my back. "Do you remember what you gave me at the housewarming party?" I asked, voice calm. They exchanged confused glances. "A tent," I reminded them. "You gave me a tent. Said it was my fresh start." Russell looked down. LaDonna's jaw tensed. Skylar scoffed. I turned and walked inside briefly, returning with a manila folder. No dramatics, just facts. Inside was a printed list: emergency housing contacts, shelters, subsidized apartments in the county. I'd spent hours putting it together the night before. "I did some research," I said, holding it out. "You might find this helpful." LaDonna looked at it like it was a curse. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," I said, voice steady. "But you don't get to come back just because I finally have something worth coming back to." "You're really going to do this?" Russell asked, voice cracking. "Turn away your own family?" "No," I said. "You turned yourselves away a long time ago. I'm just locking the door behind you." I stepped back, shut the door, turned the lock, walked away before I could second-guess any of it. Inside, the silence greeted me like an old friend. I sat on the hardwood floor of the empty living room, no furniture, no distractions, just me and the echo of every choice that brought me here. I didn't cry from heartbreak. I cried from release, from clarity, from finally letting go of the rope I'd been pulling for years, waiting for someone to meet me halfway. That night, I wandered through the house, room by room. Each one echoed with ghosts, memories, assumptions, arguments, omissions. But for the first time, I didn't believe in them anymore. They had no weight, no power. Eventually, I returned to the foyer. One last box waited near the door. I opened it, slowly, and pulled out the tent they'd once wrapped in shiny paper and handed to me like a joke I was supposed to laugh at. I carried it across the room and placed it carefully on the mantel, right in the center. Not out of anger, not out of spite. As a reminder, a trophy, a tombstone. I finally gave it the space it always took from me. 9 snow had just started to fall, soft flakes clinging to the edges of the porch railing, when I noticed the envelope wedged into the front door. No return address. Handwritten, no stamps. It was LaDonna's script. Loopy, too neat, the way she used to write passive-aggressive reminders on the fridge when I was a teenager. Inside, 2 sheets of paper. The first was a note. "We've made mistakes, but we're still your family. Please let us in, just for the holidays." The second was a photo. Skylar sitting alone at some coffee shop, staring into the middle distance, her usual performative sadness painted across her face. On the back, someone had scribbled in red ink, "Come home." I stood in the hallway for a long time, letter in hand, before folding both pages and tucking them into the back of a kitchen drawer. I didn't even finish reading the rest. They still thought I could be manipulated with nostalgia, but they were too late. That door didn't exist anymore. 2 nights later, James came over for dinner. He brought homemade lasagna, and we drank wine from mismatched mugs because I hadn't bothered to buy proper glasses yet. We ate in the kitchen, no fancy plates, no centerpieces, just comfort. "You ever think about going back?" he asked halfway through the second glass. I knew what he meant. Not physically, emotionally. I exhaled. "I didn't just meet them halfway, James. I walked the whole damn path, again and again." He didn't say anything, just nodded. "My therapist said something to me once that I wrote down," I continued, swirling the last sip of wine. "She said some families aren't broken. They're functioning exactly as they were designed, to consume someone. And that someone used to be me." James gave me that look again, the one he saved for courtroom victories. Respect mixed with quiet pride. "You don't owe anyone your peace," he said. I nodded. "Exactly." The next morning, I opened my email and saw a message from an old college acquaintance. Small talk mostly, but then a line near the bottom caught my eye. Saw your dad working at one of those storage places off the highway. Man looked rough. Later that week, I heard through a mutual friend that LaDonna's credit application was rejected again. Too much unpaid debt in collections. Skylar apparently was crashing on a friend's couch. The same girls she used to vacation with no longer invited her anywhere. Something about too much drama and burning bridges. Not one of them apologized. Not a single sorry came through a screen or door. But they were all living in the wake of their choices. It was enough. That weekend, I stood in what used to be the formal dining room, the same one where I was once asked to serve drinks at Skylar's party, and put the final coat of paint on the new office wall. The nonprofit was launching in January. Tent to Keys, a resource network for survivors of financial abuse. Real tools, real stories, real hope. I'd found the name scribbled in a notebook during one of my worst weeks, back when I was still sleeping on motel pillows, and wondering how many times someone had to betray you before it was okay to stop letting them. I sat at my desk and opened my journal. The house was quiet again, but not in the way it used to be. This was peace, not suppression, not fear. I wrote one last entry. The house is just walls. What I own now is myself. And that's something they can never take back. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that love without respect is just manipulation wearing perfume. It took losing everything I thought I needed to realize I already had what mattered. My boundaries, my voice, and the courage to walk away when staying meant losing myself. Some families are stitched together with empathy and care. Others are held together by guilt, silence, and obligation. I finally stopped confusing the two. So if you're watching this, and you've ever felt like your kindness was used against you, or that your loyalty was mistaken for weakness, I want you to know, you're not alone, and you're not crazy for setting limits. Sometimes choosing yourself is the bravest, kindest thing you can do, especially when the people closest to you are the ones who taught you how to disappear. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut off someone you love to protect your peace? Drop a yes in the comments if you relate, or tell me where you're watching this from. If you didn't vibe with the story, that's okay too. Let me know why and how you think it could have ended differently. If this video hit home for you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we have more powerful stories coming your way. Your support helps us keep sharing voices that deserve to be heard. Thanks for staying till the end. Remember, walking away isn't failure, it's freedom.